first episode, we are going to introduce you to the basic parts of the horse. To help us, we will have Maria and Luzo. There are two main reasons why you should know the parts of the horse. The first is to understand the language that is spoken between horse people, like veterinarians, farriers and instructors. The second reason, which is even more important, is that you must have knowledge of horses in order to properly communicate and care for them. You may chatter all day with your horse, but the most meaningful dialogue is based on non-vocal clues. Horses are reading our body language all the time, and we should also do the same with them in order to understand what they are telling us. During the entire series, you will gain essential knowledge about the parts of the horse and how this can help you to understand and communicate with them. Now we are going to look at the parts of the horse, and we will start with the head. The muzzle is the part of the horse's head that includes the area of the mouth, nostrils, chin, lips and front of the nose. The muzzle is very mobile and sensitive. The skin is almost hairless and has whiskers to help the horse sense things that are close to his nose. The nostrils are the external openings of the nose and are very flexible. Horses only breathe through their nostrils. They cannot breathe through their mouth like we do. The nostrils can flare open to allow more air to pass. The lips are also part of the muzzle. Horses' lips are sensitive and very mobile for grazing and drinking, but they also serve other purposes, as will be shown in a future episode. Horses also have a chin groove behind the lower lip, similar to us. Next comes the jaw, the long skinny portion that contains the teeth. Let's take a peek inside. If we compare our jaw to the horse's jaw, we can see that theirs is more elongated than ours. Actually, the whole skull is more extended, and the reason for that will be explained in a later episode. In the front of the head is the bridge of the nose, similar to ours, which is a bony portion of the face after the nostrils. This area may be convex, also known as a Roman nose, like in the Baroque horses. It can be concave, also called dish face, like Arabian horses, or it can be straight, which is the most common. Moving to the side of the face, we have the projecting cheekbones, which can be easily felt below the skin. Following comes the flat, large portion, which are the cheeks. Below the cheeks is the throat ledge, where the head attaches to the neck. The eyes. There are some aspects of equine anatomy that have similarities to human anatomy, but the eye is not one of them. The most basic difference is because humans are predators and horses are prey animals. So the eyes of humans are placed frontally and close together and can focus quickly on objects both near and far. As a prey animal, the horse's eyes are placed laterally, which allows them to have both binocular and monocular vision. And this works well for grazing and watching for predators coming from either side. The forehead is the upper part of the face, extending from the poll until the top of the eyes, and is covered by a forelock, which is a tuft of mane that falls above the forehead. Horses have very mobile ears. They can swivel them around, point them forward, pull them up, or flatten them back. The horse naturally directs his ears, separately or together, toward the focus of his attention. The poll is the area immediately behind the ears, and the underlying bones are the top of the skull bone and the first cervical bone of the neck, and is marked by a slight depression. In this area there are many nerve endings, and so it is very sensitive. The neck is the area between the head and the shoulder. The neck has 7 vertebrae, the cervicals. These enable the horse to move the neck in many directions. It is very flexible. While the horse's neck is much longer than ours, we both have the same number of neck vertebrae. Both the human and the horse cervical vertebrae have the same names and similar types of movements. The difference is due more to orientation, horizontal for the horse and vertical for us. For example, when you say no, you move your head left and right, but when the horse makes this movement, it rotates his head side to side because he stands horizontally. The chest, is also called the breast, is the front portion of the body between the shoulders. The mane runs from the poll to the withers. It grows from the top part of the neck, and this part of the mane is called the crest. The withers are located above and just behind the horse's shoulders. As we can see, the withers are the top of the dorsal process of the horse's spine. The shoulder is made up of the scapula and associated muscles, and it runs from the withers to the point of shoulder, which is the joint at the front of the chest. Although it is named point of shoulder, this bony point is not part of the shoulder blade. It is actually the protruding head of the humerus. Unlike us, the scapula is not attached to the rest of the skeleton through the collarbone. There is no bony connection between the foreleg and the rest of the skeleton. The foreleg is attached to the body strictly by muscle. These muscles are attached primarily to the scapula and also through the humerus. The arm is the humerus and goes from the point of the shoulder to the elbow. The horse's arm is inside his body. Although it has a fair range of movement, it is not free-moving like ours. The range of motion of the horse's upper arm is limited, as ours would be if someone were to tie a rope around the chest and upper arms, leaving the arms free only from the elbows down. The elbow is the joint of the front leg at the point where the belly of the horse meets the leg. It is the same as the elbow in humans. The forearm, the area of the front leg between the knee and the elbow, consisting of the fused radius and ulna. We have these two bones separated, but in the horse they are fused. The knees are the large joint in the front legs above the cannon bone. These contain the carpal bones. The following parts that we will see are common on all four legs. So, the cannon bones, the area between the knee in the front leg or the hock in the back leg, and the fetlock joint. The fetlock joint is the horse's ankle joint, sometimes called the ankle of the horse. At the fetlock joint grows a tuft of hair called fetlock. Between the fetlock joint and the hoof there are two bones called the pastern. There is a long pastern and a short pastern, also named proximal phalanx and intermediate phalanx, just like ours. The last bone in the horse's leg is the coffin bone, also called the distal phalanx. This bone has the shape of a hoof. Now let's compare the horse's leg to the equivalent structure in humans. The joint we call the knee in the horse is about halfway down the front leg. The joint we call the knee in humans is about halfway down our legs. But are these the same joints? Remember that the horse's front leg is the equivalent to your arm, and his back leg is the equivalent to your leg. So the knee on his front leg cannot possibly be the same joint as your knee, which is on your leg. What then is the comparable part of the horse's front knee? Well, it's your wrist. However, as we proceed down below the wrist, we find some significant differences between the horse and the human skeleton. Instead of having 5 fingers, the horse has just one. The cannon, pastern, and coffin bones are adapted from the center finger. The splint bones are vestigial digits on either side. So, the leg from the fetlock down is actually a long finger. The tip of its finger is protected by a tough outside covering that comes into contact with the ground and is called the hoof wall. It is a much larger and stronger version of the human fingernail. Actually, it is made of the same material called keratin. So the hoof is the foot of the horse, and the hoof wall is this outside covering, which is the equivalent to our fingernail. Have you ever heard the expression, no hoof, no horse? Well, it's true. Without healthy hooves, the horse is uncomfortable and unable to train or work. In order to provide correct care for the horse's hooves, owners need to have an understanding of their construction. We will go into details of the hoof in future episodes. Before moving away from the legs, we must not forget the chestnuts, which are a horn-like growth that appear on the front legs of a horse above the knee and on the back legs below the hock. They can be large or very small. The chestnuts are believed to be vestigial toes of the ancestral horse that lived roughly 50 million years ago. The back is the area where the saddle sits. It begins at the base of the withers and extends to the last thoracic vertebra. The loin is the short muscled area joining the back to the croup. It extends over the lumbar vertebra and so has no ribs to add support. The back and loin need to have strong muscles in order to carry the weight of the rider. The croup is the top line of the hindquarters, beginning at the hip, extending over the sacral vertebra and ending at the dock of the tail. The solid part of the horse's tail is called the dock, and it contains the tailbone, which is the hard part inside the tail. It is the continuation of the horse's spine. The horse's tail is made up of 16 to 20 vertebrae, which explains why it is so maneuverable. By contrast, our tail is made up of 4 or 5 small vertebrae, which are fused together and referred to as the coccyx. But as you look at the horse's tail, you will see something quite different. A fountain of hair that appears to sprout right from the horse's hindquarters. The barrel is the large area below the back. It contains the rib cage. The basic design of the rib cage is similar for both horses and humans. It is comprised of the sternum or breastbone, the thoracic vertebra, and the ribs themselves. The function of the rib cage is to protect the internal organs, like the heart and lungs. The heart girth is the area behind the elbow of the horse where the girth is fastened. This area should be where the barrel is at its greatest diameter in a properly conditioned horse. The abdomen, or belly, is the broad area underneath the horse between the elbow and the flank. The flank is where the hind legs and the barrel meet, the area right behind the rib cage, and it goes up to the loin. The hindquarters is the large muscle area of the hind legs. Inside the hindquarters lies the pelvis bone. This bone has some prominent points: point of croup, point of hip, and point of buttock. The buttock is the part of the hindquarters below the root of the tail. The thigh is the part of the hindquarters where the femur lies. Stifle corresponds to the knee of the human. However, the human knee is straight when we are standing, and the stifle is angled when the horse is standing. The gaskin is a muscled area of the hind leg above the hock and below the stifle. It is the same as the calf of a human, and the underlying bone is the tibia. The hock is the joint of the hind leg and is similar to a person's ankle joint. The point of hock is the most prominent part of the hock. It is comparable to our heel. If you were a ballerina, your stance would be more like that of a horse, up on your toes. In fact, the modern horse stands only on one of his toes. The parts below the hock and below the knees are the same on the forelimbs and have already been mentioned earlier in this episode. If we were to stand like the horse, we would need to do it like Maria, where she is only touching with the middle digits on the floor, which is quite impossible for us. But as you can see, the horse is quite similar to us. So pretend you are the horse and are on fours. Have you ever thought what it would be like to have a rider on your back? Imagine someone is sharply poking around your back. You will immediately try to move away from this and so hollow your back and pull your head upward. This is the sort of thing we do to our horses when we don't sit to the trot correctly, when we bump heavily on the saddle at the canter, when we kick the horse to make him go faster, or when we pull the reins to make him slow down. Just like your reaction was to become tense, hollow your back and raise your head, the horse will have very much the same behavior. Now instead, imagine that someone is doing a soft massage along your back. It feels very pleasant, and in this case your reaction will be to raise your back, stretch and arc it up like a cat. You certainly will not cringe from this sensation. You will enjoy it. If you could give that kind of sensation to your horse when you are riding him, his reaction would be quite similar. He would also arc his back, stride freely, head down and eyes quiet. The bond between horses and us will grow both physically and emotionally as our knowledge about them also grows. In this episode, we shared some basic knowledge. We hope it was helpful and you enjoyed it. In the next episodes of this series, we will give more detailed information about the parts of the horse. So see you in the next episodes. Bye!